is carrying you.
Shalom and Happy New Year to you all, and welcome to the first Jerusalem Dispatch ICEJ UK live Zoom event for 2025. And after all, this is the pro-Israel ministry that brings you a closer connection to Israel and the Jewish people. And in this program, we shall be marking the 80th anniversary of the liberation of Auschwitz-Birkenau, the largest of all the Nazi death camps during the Second World War, as we discuss how the Nazis murdered over 6 million precious Jewish lives on an industrial scale, the likes we've never seen before or never before has happened in history. We'll be talking about the importance of Holocaust education post October the 7th, and we're joined by a very special guest today. His name is Mark Cave. He is a very well-known and famous advertising executive, but he's also the UK National Director for the Holocaust Centre Museum. Before we introduce him, it'd be good to hand over to Len Grates, the Operations Manager for ICEJ UK, to just give us an update on the Ministry of ICEJ UK, but also to pray for tonight's proceedings. And we are live and we are interactive. So if you have any questions that you'd like to put to Mark, please feel free to do that. Happy New Year to you, Len. First time I've seen you, also live in 2025. So Happy New Year and welcome to Jerusalem Dispatch Live.
Thanks, Simon, and welcome, Mark, and welcome everyone who's with us tonight, and Happy New Year to you all. A new year doesn't change things an awful lot when it comes to supporting Israel. Life goes on as it has done. And although, we can say in 2025, we were stirred up to do so much. And we want to thank you for your support during that year. We were able to raise over £500,000 here in the UK to send out to Israel to help with the current situation there and help with Aliyah and all sorts of things. So we're very, very grateful for all your support and help. And of course that continues. We think daily, pray daily for the remaining hostages and pray for their release. And although we're focusing on the Holocaust tonight here, we're living in the days when we've seen the worst tragedy with the Jewish people since the days of the Holocaust. So things haven't changed much. The same spirit is out there that's against the Jewish people, and we as believers want to stand alongside the Jewish people in an ever increasing way, as well as just being able to give financially. But let's be out there practically showing our love and support. So thank you for your support through 2024. We're depending on you to continue that in the coming year so that we can continue to reach out and show the Jewish people that they're not alone in these dark days, that they're very much thousands here in the UK, tens of thousands who are standing up for them. So let's show that love and care and concern in very, very practical ways. So I'm just going to pray and then hand over back to Simon, and he'll lead us through the evening. So we want to thank you, the God of Israel, that you are all-powerful, almighty, all-loving, and all-caring. And tonight, as we set out on this new year, we once again just pray for these hostages, that you'll bring them home, set them free, return them to their families and their friends. And so we just want to commit this evening to you, Lord. We pray that we'll have ears to hear about these important issues, Lord, that they're not just historical, but they're present day issues. And so we just commit this evening to you and thank you for being with us. Amen. Okay, back to you, Simon.
Thank you very much, Len. And for our viewers watching, I did interview a guy called Danny, whose son, sadly, Omri, is being held by Hamas in Gaza. And yeah, he's got a beard and he hasn't shaved since his son was kidnapped since October the 7th. And he's going around the world to raise awareness in the plight of not only his son, but also the remaining hostages. And when you hear his story, it's just harrowing. It's another echo of the Holocaust. Now, as part of the Ministry of ICEJ UK, we want to let you know about exciting conferences. And if you're a pastor or a leader, there is the Envision conference taking place in early February in Jerusalem, organized by the ICEJ in Jerusalem. So let's have a look at this wonderful trailer, and you too can be part of Envision for 2025. There you go. I attended last year's conference, and it was incredible. It was life-changing for me to visit the south of Israel and to see the destruction of what Hamas did on October the 7th. Absolutely horrific. But for me as a journalist, it was absolutely invaluable. So very much to thank ICEJ UK for sending me to go and see Israel post October the 7th. And if you want to go and you're a leader or a pastor, it's an incredible experience. Len, do you want to share your thoughts, particularly at the end of the month? On Monday, the 27th of January, marks International Holocaust Memorial Day, but it's also the 80th anniversary to the day in which the Soviet Red Army liberated Auschwitz-Birkenau from the Nazis.
Yeah, well, it's an important day. It's the International Holocaust Memorial Day. And I once again will be attending the service at the Foreign Office with the Israeli Embassy, just to remember that with many other Jewish leaders and Christian leaders and national leaders. So it's important to remember these things. You know, remembering is a key part of both Jewish and Christian ideology. You know, we remember when we were breaking bread, Yeshua said to us, "Do this in remembrance." And so remembering is critically important. And so, you know, the fact that we should never ever forget what happened to the Jewish people during the Second World War, and also not just then, but also you know, the persecution they've suffered down the centuries, and unfortunately too often at Christians' hands. So it's important to remember these things, to recognize too that if we've played a part in these things, that there needs to be true repentance and turning around and putting things right. And so one of the things that we're doing as the International Christian Embassy is trying to do it right, to stand alongside the Jewish people like they've never had before, a positive, strong standing, and to be there so that it will never happen again. Unfortunately, we saw what happened in Israel, in Gaza, on the October the 7th, 2023. But never again is a cry that goes up again and again. And we need more and more to stand alongside the Jewish people and say, listen, you're not in this alone. We're in this too. So let's remember, let's take time out on that day to remember and to make sure that we tell our children and our grandchildren and keep telling the stories to our friends, so that it's a living memory, not just a dead memory. So yeah.
Amen.
So back to you,
Amen.
Simon.
Well said, Len. Let's have a look now at how the Ministry of the International Christian Embassy at Jerusalem, UK, is helping to bless Holocaust survivors. And this is the home for Holocaust survivors. Plus, also be shown a great video from the UK National Holocaust Centre and Museum as well.
נכנסתי, ואני גרה פה כבר כמעט 3 שנים. יש לי חדר נפלא, שקט, שאני יכולה לחיות בו כמו בבית. אני לא צריכה לעשות שום דבר, לא צריכה לסחוב ממכולת, לא צריכה לבשל. הכל מוכן, ומנקים לי פעם בשבוע, וחיים מאוד מאוד נוחים, ומלאים עם חברות חדשות. ויש לי חיים מאוד נוחים שלא היו לי אף פעם בחיים, עד שבאתי הנה. ואני מאושרת. נודע לי שכל הבניין הזה מאורגן על ידי שגרירות נוצרית בירושלים, והם עוזרים לנו, שזה באמת תענוג לחיות פה. תודה רבה רבה, ומקרב לב עבור העזרה שלכם, ואין לי מילים להגיד כמה שזה יפה שאתם עוזרים לנו, שכל כך נחוץ לנו עזרתכם. תודה.
Okay, and it just shows you how important it is to bless and support the remaining Holocaust survivors. Now, we have a great video, and I was hoping that the chief executive of ICEJ UK would be joining us, David Elms, because this is a football video about the Holocaust produced by the National Holocaust Centre and Museum up in Nottingham. And this brings in, including the former Liverpool manager, talking about the importance of Holocaust education.
Today, on Holocaust Memorial Day,
we remember.
We remember those who stood by.
Those who did nothing.
Those that shook their heads.
We remember those who said, "This will pass."
It won't last.
We remember those who didn't believe.
Wouldn't believe.
Refused to believe.
Those who reasoned its only words.
high spirits,
Harmless insults.
We remember those who turned away.
Who stood by.
Who watched the deeds of others, but did nothing.
We remember
The good people.
the decent people,
all the regular people,
Who didn't hate.
but who encouraged and supported hatred through the power of their silence.
and we remember their shame.
Their eternal, regretful shame.
Today, on Holocaust Memorial Day, we must remember.
We must remember.
Just why, when we see racism, anti-Semitism, discrimination or hatred,
No matter how small or seemingly insignificant.
We can't stand by.
We mustn't stand by.
We need to stand up.
We need to stand together.
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 Very powerful and very important video, and 5 years old, but it's still incredibly relevant. Len, would you have the honour of reading out our special guest for tonight, Mark Cave, and his very impressive biography? And it's a real privilege that he's able to join us tonight to talk about the amazing work that he's doing through the UK National Holocaust Centre and Museum, based up in Nottingham.
Yes, thank you, Simon, and thank you for joining us, Mark. It's a privilege to have you with us. Mark Cave is the director of the UK's National Holocaust Centre and Museum, and the only place of a Holocaust memorial and learning in the world founded by non-Jewish people. And it's a multi-award-winning Arts Council national portfolio organisation. Since Mark's appointment in November 2019, the museum has drastically accelerated the digital element of its strategy, including multi-platform experience, the Forever Project, and the Journey. which are sector flagships. A creative industry entrepreneur, Mark co-founded the film company Green Cave People in 2012, having previously founded and built and sold the advertising agency Drugstore. So welcome, Mark, and thank you for joining us this evening.
Thank you very much, Len. Evening, both chaps, and it's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah, thank you very much, Mark. And thank you for the work that you do as the UK's National Director for the National Holocaust Centre and Museum based up in Nottingham. And also, you're a very creative guy and you're thinking about creative ideas, particularly rethinking Holocaust education, which is so important. But for our viewers who don't know you, would you just share with us something about your Jewish background and your upbringing and where your interest in the Holocaust really stems from?
Sure. I'm British, and I'm Jewish, and without wanting to get too heavy too fast, one of the problems of all racisms, not least anti-Jewish racism, is being compartmentalized as either one thing or another. You can have an identity which spans more than one thing.
Absolutely.
So I'm born in Middlesex. I'm third generation. My family came from, my original family name was Kawa, K-A-W-A, which means coffee in Yiddish, and in Polish we came from Kalisz in central Poland. But I was brought up feeling completely British, completely, like you or anybody else, whilst at the same time being proudly Jewish as well. I think I'm an example of, the kind of everyday assumption on behalf of the British Jewish community that we are British. If we're British and we're here, the whole point is to be part of things, not excluded from things, and wanting to contribute to the culture and be part of a society. Problems only arise when people kind of don't want that and want to other you. I've never hidden being Jewish, quite the reverse. When I was a kid, I used to have dust-ups in the playground. It's a rite of passage, really, and it probably strengthened my Jewish identity more than anything else. But no, I think overall, the important thing for me is being Jewish is cultural and it's religious. It in no way whatsoever contradicts being patriotically English. I think I should probably say English rather than British. I think they're pretty slightly different things.
Absolutely. And a Londoner as well, right?
Yeah, sorry about that.
Nothing wrong with that. And Mark, do you want to just share with us, because we're talking about Holocaust education, this program, particularly marking the 80th anniversary of the liberation of Auschwitz, Birkenau International Holocaust Memorial Day, because that's fast approaching on Monday, the 27th of January. But share with us your experience of Holocaust education growing up, and still how today, 80 years on, the Holocaust still casts a massive dark shadow over the Jewish people today. I don't think there's not one Jewish family around the world that hasn't been affected by the Holocaust.
Well, directly, indirectly, that's right. Okay, so the first part of your question, I didn't have any formal Holocaust education as a kid because it wasn't in schools, not schools I went to anyway. It only became statutory, I think, in the 1990s, and I went to school in the 1890s. So my education was informal, like you say, by being Jewish, part of a Jewish family, you kind of know these things. And I have to say that I think when Holocaust education started to become in vogue and was, mandatory in schools, it was in the 90s. And that was just about recent enough, close enough in time to when the Holocaust occurred that people had a sense of adjacency and feeling terrible about it. And there were many more survivors, of course, alive who were much more vibrant in the way they gave their testimony. And I think that had a productive effect. We are long, long past that time. Survivors, as you know, Simon, and I love that sweet little lady in Israel that ICEJ is, so they're wonderful. They are role models, they're inspiring. But even today, when There's still a fair few around. I'm pleased to say. Them giving their story always evokes empathy and pity and tears and admiration for the way they've dealt with it, but it does nothing to stop the haters hating Jews as an entity today. And that's a real tragedy. The assumption has always been that the awfulness of the history will induce a sense of guilt and moral responsibility today. It doesn't, as you know very well. Some people in extremists say, why are the Jews doing today to others what was done to them? It's an outrageous slur. It's false equivalence. It's Holocaust distortion, and it makes me very, very upset indeed. And we're doing a lot about it.
Absolutely good. Well, we'll look forward to hearing a bit more about that. But share with us the remarkable story of how the UK National Holocaust Centre and Museum started. It's just inspirational because it is the only National Holocaust Centre in the UK and based in Robin Hood country up in Nottingham.
I never tire of telling this story, so thank you for giving me another opportunity. The only museum, in the Holocaust museum, that was founded by Christians, Methodist family, the Smiths, very ordinary name, very unordinary family. Dad, Eddie, who's still alive as a Methodist reverend, and Mum, Marina, who sadly passed away 2 summers ago as a Sunday school teacher and a real matriarch, a wonderful woman. And the boys, James and Stephen, brought up as good Christians. They used to do a lot of Holy Land tours, and they wound up in Yad Vashem. For those watching who don't know what that is, it's the Holocaust Museum in Jerusalem. It's an amazing place. And they came out of there and said, "Why is there nowhere like this in England?" And Mum and Dad had a rundown farmhouse in Robin Hood country, like you say, near Laxton, Britain's last medieval farming village, open field farming. They had a Christian retreat centre, an ecumenical one there, and the brothers said to Mum and Dad, "How about we turn it into a Holocaust learning centre?" And Mum and Dad, being the amazing people they are, said, "Yeah, sure, good idea, why not?" So they did. And they knocked on the doors of hundreds of Holocaust survivors who had found refuge in Britain, said, "Hello, we're the Smiths, and we're going to open a Holocaust centre, and we'd love you to be part of it." And they were greeted with a raised eyebrow because no one felt they'd pull it off. They did it with their own money and resources, and on opening day, the videos are just breathtaking. The love on day one, 1995, the love, the bond between these Jewish survivors of the Holocaust and these Christian, wonderful human beings, it is the communal ethos upon which we operate today. I just love and adore them.
Amazing, thank you. And Mark, share with us how you became involved with the National Holocaust Centre and Museum, because you've had an incredibly successful career in advertising and marketing. You've won 2 campaign awards. Is it the Campaign of the Year award in advertising twice?
I think yeah. I mean, there's lots of awards. They're good at giving out awards. Yeah. I mean,
and of course, tell us a little bit about that, because you're also famous for the famous Tesco's slogan as well.
Oh, every little helps. Yeah, sure. I like creating things, stories and narratives, and and trying to well, as an advertising guy, actually entertain people. If you don't entertain people or engage their interest, they're not going to buy the goods from you. So yeah, I'm a creative guy, I suppose. I loved doing funny TV commercials and billboard campaigns for political stuff and a lot of charity work. And when I sold my business, I wanted to do something more socially purposeful. So the film business that I have with my partner Malcolm Green works for lots of corporations, but not to help them sell their goods, more to help them do the right thing, and lots of NGOs and charities as well. And was approached by the National Holocaust Museum, Central Museum it was called then, about 10 years ago, to give them some advice. And I was invited to become a trustee. I was very honored to become a trustee. And then in 2019, the guy who was running the place wasn't very well. I said to my co-trustees, would it be helpful if I just stepped in for a couple of months, 3 months, for half of my week to just run the place while we find someone to replace Phil. And I'm now in month 64, I think it is. And it's been 9 days a week, not 3 days a week. But it's been an absolute mitzvah, as we say, an absolute privilege and an honor. And I can't get enough of it. We've done some amazing things. We're rebuilding the place. I raised a few £1 million to get the builders in to have a complete overhaul because it's 30 years old and never had a lick of paint. We're creating new exhibitions and doing some pretty hard-hitting stuff, if I'm honest, but it's within the environment of this love and warmth and celebration of difference, because without that, there's no point wagging a finger at people. You know, people, it's a safe space for difficult, tough questions.
That's good. And Mark, share with us how really you are using technology, the digital age, really to touch a younger generation who may be aware of the Holocaust but don't actually feel its relevance, unlike our generation where we kind of brought up on our stories of our grandfathers sharing their experience of being actively involved in serving and fighting against the Nazis in the Second World War.
Well, I'm going to answer the technology question relatively quickly. We can always come back to you because I don't think technology by itself is the answer. I mean, to just go a bit wider for a second, you know, I think one of the great problems facing humankind is the feeling that we are going to be supplanted by technology. You know, AI, everyone is obviously scared about it taking things over. We are all rather peeved, I think it's fair to say, by the power of the social media platforms and the disinformation that spreads, which divides us all. So when we use technology, it is in the service of humanity, not to supplant and replace humanity. And an example, I suppose, of that is, what are we going to do when there are no survivors to talk to left? Because they are, I did say before that it doesn't necessarily solve the problem of anti-Jewish racism today, but it certainly is a bridge. You know, if they could just to keep the history remembered, like you and Len were talking about at the top of the show. So the Forever Project keeps not just their words alive forever, it keeps the conversation with them alive forever. And what I mean by that is, just someone talking to you, fine, they might be very interesting, probably a lot more interesting than me talking right now. But if it's a Holocaust survivor, you know, but what you learn and remember often comes from the conversation that you have. If I'm a 14-year-old kid and I'm asking the question that I want to ask of that survivor, and I kind of, I've got a really interesting answer, you are far more likely to remember that than just being told something. It's the interaction which counts. So the Forever Project, imagine it as almost like having a FaceTime chat with your grandpa or your grandma. There are 11 Holocaust survivors you can do this with, cover the gamut of death camps, labor camps, slave camps, kinder transportees, hidden children, all the range of experiences that befell Holocaust survivors in all of the major European countries. So it's a wonderful repository of the stories and the facts of the Holocaust, but it's brought down from the enormity of the 6 million to 11 inspirational human beings that you can actually have a chat with. So it is pioneering technology. It does use AI, but I think it's doing something which ennobles rather than emasculates humanity.
Amazing. Yeah, no, that makes total sense. Mark, show us the importance and significance of actually marking International Holocaust Memorial Day on the 27th of January. Also knowing that this year is a special anniversary because it's the 80th anniversary of the liberation of Auschwitz-Birkenau by the Nazis. But one thing I find fascinating about Holocaust education is news stories come to light almost all the time. Like I'm a big fan of the program called SAS Rogue Heroes. A whole story about the formation of the SAS and some of the main characters there, like Paddy Mayne. But what's not told, and has only just been found out, is that it was the SAS that were the first to come across Bergen-Belsen in Germany. And they're the ones that rounded up all the Nazis who were still proud of the treatment that they treated the Jewish people at Bergen-Belsen. And the horrors of what they saw still had a huge impact upon them. But these are like secret files that have only been released in the last couple of years. But share with us from your perspective why International Holocaust Memorial Day is so important.
Well, where do I start? I think there's two aspects to it. One is, again, as Len said, straightforward remembrance. The single greatest atrocity the world has ever seen culminated in Auschwitz. There were many other camps, but as you said, it was the most notorious of them, killed the most people in the most horrific ways. And the more it recedes into history, the less believable it will become, because it is so horrific, so unimaginable, that we have to keep saying it. So, I have the privilege of being friendly with 3 or 4, I think it's 4, living survivors of Auschwitz. The most amazing of whom, in many respects, was a couple, Arik Hirsch, who's now 96, an amazing man, and the redoubtable Anita Lasker-Wildfish, whose life was saved by her being a very brilliant cellist, and she was in the Auschwitz orchestra, which had to perform for the Nazi officers in the evening. And that saved her life. And when she survived, she came to England. She actually is a co-founder of the English Chamber Orchestra, and all her children are world famous musicians, cellists mostly. I've just been involved with the making of a documentary about her meeting the son of the commandant of Auschwitz. In fact, she and her daughter Maya meet the son and grandson of Rudolf Höss. And it's quite a chewy encounter, like you might imagine. So I think, and we're doing an education program around that it's gone out to 4,000 schools, every secondary school in the country, about it. What is it about? It's about, can we forgive? Can we reconcile? How does reconciliation happen? There are many other themes in the movie, but educationally, I think that's what it's about. We can't do anything about history. It's spilt milk. We can't do anything, sadly, about dead Jews other than remember them. But we can, and we do have a duty to protect the living ones, and indeed every other human soul, from violence and hate. And Anita, who is a fierce woman, people are terrified of her. She's 99. She still smokes 50 fags a day. And she doesn't want to speak, and she's grumpy. There's no way breaking that. I love her. She's absolutely wonderful. And she says, before you kill each other, maybe sit down and have a cup of coffee with each other. Now, it's incredibly simplistic, but it's incredibly right, in my view. A lot of hate comes from conspiracy theories and assumptions that get built up towards people you've probably never met. So when I think about the Israel haters today, they've never been to Israel. They've probably never met a Jew, but they do think Jews control the world. They do think they control the banks. They do think they poisoned the wells in the medieval times, and they do think they created COVID for financial gain today. It's risible. If you meet the people that you're talking about and think you know everything about, maybe, just maybe, over a cup of coffee, you might just decide, I still don't like them, but I'm not going to kill them. You know? It's incredibly simple stuff. So I think, to come back to your question, we have to remember Auschwitz as the epitome of evil, but we have to apply it to what is going on today. There is a vicious circle. The why of the Holocaust is arguably more important than the what. The why is there's a small bunch of people who live amongst us, who control us, who are the enemy, the Jews. that's been around for 2,000 years, and it goes round in a vicious circle, damaging and destroying not only Jewish people, but actually the societies in which this hate occurs. And you take the Jews out of Germany, you lose something. When you take the Jews out of Poland, like we did, they lost klezmer music. I know it sounds silly, but there's a huge klezmer music revival movement in Poland, established by non-Jewish Poles, because they want to revive the culture. It's great for their economy, and it's great for their cultural arts sector. It's just a little example, a tiny little one. So I think that this vicious circle that spins around and around in a doom loop, damaging everybody, which caused the Holocaust, we have to say, and it's back today. Look where it led to in the past. Let's not let it happen again, because the signs are that it will, because it's out of control. It's spreading at speeds today that Goebbels could only gawp at because of the internet. So I think that's the importance of the day. It's a focus for what are we going to do today and tomorrow, because we can't fix the past.
How do we deal with the fact that sadly, we're seeing the Holocaust being diluted? Many of our social commentators are seeing that the Holocaust is they believe it's becoming too politicized. It's too focused on the Jewish people. We need to widen this, even though the Holocaust is the murder of 6 million Jewish people on an industrial scale by the Nazis in the most horrific way imaginable. And I remember a few years ago working in the European Parliament and doing a program there. And they had their own exhibition for International Holocaust Memorial Day. They didn't allow any Israeli representative from the Israeli government to come and speak. And they all wanted to make it all about the Romani gypsies. Share with us how there's a great danger now that we're seeing this watering down of what is the Holocaust, which is pure Jew hatred in its most vile and evil form.
Okay. I mean, to be fair, I just like to sort of set the record straight. The Holocaust as an industrial extermination project was conceived of by the Nazis to eliminate Jews. But that does not mean that there weren't other victim groups that had terrible things done to them. And the single biggest other victim group was the Roma and Sintis, called gypsies then, not now. They don't have a tradition of liking to hand down stories. They feel a sense of stigma. So we still don't know today how many were murdered, but it's up to 500,000. That's a horrendous number. Were others killed and suffered? Absolutely. But they weren't singled out for elimination. So that's the first thing to say, I think, that in terms of actually getting rid of people, getting them off planet Earth, it was Jews. Brackets, Roma and Sinti. But I think the best way of sort of summarizing that is when Hitler knew he'd lost the war, World War II, he devoted all his remaining resources to wiping out the death camps, trying to finish off the job. That was his priority. A Jew-free world, in his view and the Nazis' view, was a better world, and that was more important than beating the Allies. So, why do people deny that today? Firstly, because they're ignorant, if they do deny it, and just literally don't know the history. They believe what they see on Instagram or TikTok or wherever it might be. Why? Because it suits their agenda. Now, we're not talking, I have to say, Simon, I don't believe in catastrophizing. The great, sensible middle ground, I don't think I like that. I think most people are decent on the middle ground. It's the extremists, the bullies, the hooligans, sadly, life always works this way. They're the ones, they might be a minority, but if they're vocal, they're the ones whose voices we hear. And what's happening today is that our governments and our civic institutions are allowing themselves to be bullied by them. I think that's because of post-colonial guilt, British Empire, American Empire, French Empire, German, whatever. So we don't want to be seen, our leaders don't want to bite back because they are scared of being accused of being racist or whatever. So it behoves people like you and me, I think, to say, well, of course, don't condone racism, but we have to call a spade If someone is denying the truth of the Holocaust or saying that what is happening in the Middle East, which is terrible, is a Holocaust, you're just factually wrong. Sorry. And it's not racist to say that. And by the way, you might hate the West. You might hate capitalism. You might hate democracy. You're entitled to your opinion, but you are not entitled to incite violence because of it.
Mark, share with us your thoughts on the unprecedented wave of Jew hatred that we've seen since October the 7th. And I think, I mean, this was the biggest mass terrorist attack in Israel's history. I mean, over 1,200 Israelis and foreign nationals died. Between 6,000 and 7,000 people were badly injured. And not forgetting the 250 who were then taken as hostage and taken back to that hellhole in Gaza. And of course, there's still many of the hostages that still are waiting to be released. And we pray that Donald Trump will be able to put pressure on the Qataris and Hamas to ensure their release. But I've actually seen Kibbutz Nir Oz. I've seen the destruction of the cars of those who escaped the Nova Music Festival and seeing the cars shot up with bullets. I've seen those homes of those kibbutzes completely burnt. And to me, it felt like you were on the set of an actual Holocaust. Share with us your thoughts since October the 7th. Instead of Israel having world sympathy, we've seen that the Jewish people now have been targeted as well with this unprecedented rise in hatred. And just in researching for the program, I didn't know actually in one of the parks in Nottingham, there is a memorial for the Holocaust. And that back in August last year was scribbled "Free Palestine" on it. And we've seen, for example, Anne Frank, who became the symbolic figure of the Holocaust and her story, her statue's been defamed. Just share with us this current pandemic of Jew hatred that we're seeing go around the world, not only here in the UK, but throughout the world.
It's coming from two places, two extremist places. It's coming from the extreme left, and it's coming from extreme political Islamism. So I think there are those two places, those two groups of people, I think, start out from a different start point. One is empire building, and the other, I think, is just deeply, deeply upset at in their view, the failure of the West, empire, and capitalism. And fair enough, as I said before, everyone's entitled to their opinion. And actually, I have some sympathy with, if you look at the 2008 financial collapse, and then austerity, and then Brexit, and then hyperinflation, and then all these terrible things. And, times are not easy. And when times aren't easy, people get unhappy, then you need to look for a scapegoat. I understand that. I understand them feeling not very happy with their lot. I just wouldn't blame Jews for it. So Jews are the tip of an iceberg of discontent. So when they attack Jews, what they're really attacking is Judeo-Christian values that are the kind of central mechanism of the West. So it ends up being what some commentators call the red-green alliance. The red, hard left, Marxist communist hard left, in alliance with the green of political extreme Islamism, because they both actually want to see the overthrow of Western nation states based on Judeo-Christian values. So they start from different places, but it ends up becoming like an alliance, an axis of evil. And they are incredibly bolshy and aggressive, incredibly well-funded globally. And as I said before, I just don't think Western governments have got the bottle to stand up to them. I've said it several times. There's a wonderful German Christian group who called the March of Life. I spoke at their rally on Yom HaShoah in London last year. And I said, we've all got skin in this game, boys and girls. It's not about Jews. It's about all of us. They don't want any of us to have our social values, our religious values, our cultural values. You and I, Simon, would say, you practice whatever religious creed you like. It's not mine, but it doesn't stop us being friends. And we can agree to disagree philosophically, theologically, whatever. That's the beauty of humankind, right? They are so-called, certainly on the hard left, so-called progressive liberals. They couldn't be more illiberal. I don't agree with you, and therefore you are evil. So they are, I suppose, the foot soldiers of the violent, murdering extremists, the pogromists of October 7th. So before Israel responded to the outrage of October 7, we saw people on the streets of Ealing in London, to give you one example, celebrating. They were exhilarated at the death of Jews. So I'm agreeing with you. I'm just trying to provide some context. I don't want to make this all about Jews. Pleading for pity for Jews ain't our style, and it's certainly not my style. Sadly, victimhood is not an attractive look. This is about trying to make the Jewish world, the Christian world, the secular world, the middle ground, the kind of the floating voters on the reasonable people, sanguine people who aren't extremists, understand we are all the target of this extremism. We've all got skin in the game. So the silent majority, the decent ones who don't like seeing these vile marches on a Saturday afternoon in London, Manchester, wherever else, who hate the awfulness of the savagery of genuine genocides across lots of African and Middle Eastern countries, but they're not saying anything about it. They're just kind of having a whinge about it over their own dinner parties. It's not enough. Got to stand up.
Yeah. Mark, it seems very troubling that many of our Western leaders and our democratic institutions have actually forgotten the lesson of the Holocaust. And that lesson is that what starts with the Jewish people never finishes with the Jewish people. And if you allow hatred of the Jewish people to continue, the persecution of the Jewish people, then our democracy, our freedom, our way of life is actually at stake.
That's right.
And if our nation and our government don't defend our Jewish brothers and sisters like yourself, then our nation and our society is in risk of tyranny.
I think they want to. I honestly do. The big difference between today and then, it was state-sponsored then. It's not today. I honestly don't think there are many governments who are anti, your and my values. I really don't. What I think the issue is appeasement. They're all Neville Chamberlains now. They are scared. They are scared witless. And it's only people like Trump. I'm not a massive fan. I don't know. Well, it's not really appropriate to talk about my political views on this program, but we are going to have some bad guys stand up and say, sorry, we're not standing for this. Because I don't see, any number of British governments in my lifetime have just presided over a gradual erosion of British social cohesion.
Sorry about that, Mark. How do we counter this? You are one of this country's leading educators when it comes to Holocaust education. What do we need to do to kind of wake up kind of Middle England or kind of mainstream society who are decent people? They are not part of the hard left. They're not Islamists. They just go about an ordinary life. But then realizing that if we all don't do anything regarding this rise of Jew hatred, then our whole society and our nation is in peril.
I think by helping them to join the dots, Simon. Governments, I don't think still quite join the dots between Israel and Jews. I don't think that they quite understand that the things that are said on marches against Israel are the very things that were said about Jews. So in other words, the ethnic slur of the blood libel, the money libel, the power libel that were leveled against individual Jews is now leveled against the Jewish state. I don't think they quite understand the connection. So I think it falls to people like me, us, our museum, to do imaginative, bold things, which is why you mentioned the European Parliament. I'm thrilled to say that we are launching an exhibition in London on Monday week. which will then go to a variety of cities internationally, including Brussels. It'll be in the EU Parliament. Wasn't allowed to be in the British Parliament, by the way, but that's another story. And that exhibition talks about pogroms. It talks about October 7, but it also talks about the pogrom in Baghdad in 41, the pogrom of Kristallnacht in Berlin, which is widely regarded as being the start of the Holocaust. What is it about pogromists? Pogromists believe that slaughtering Jews is an act of social justice, that it will free everybody everywhere. It's not formally religious, but it is like a religious ecstasy. That it's not just enough to get rid of Jews, to ethnically cleanse, but you have to murder them, rape, defile the dead bodies. Like everything that we saw on October 7, it is not about Israel. That is about ridding the world of Jews, making it Judenrein. And what we're doing in this exhibition is showing the connection so that people do join the dots between October 7, Kristallnacht, and the slaughter of brown Jews, because no, Jews do not have white privilege. The Nazis didn't think Jews were white, and there are plenty of brown and black Jews who have lived in every Middle Eastern country for 3 millennia. So the Baghdad pogrom, the Yemen pogrom in Aden, I could go on and on, Tunisia, Morocco, Algeria, because the audience that comes to this exhibition will have no idea whatsoever that these types of Jewish people exist, nor that the same thing was done to them as was done in the Holocaust. The Holocaust, in other words, was not a one-off, and October 7th is merely the latest manifestation of this ideology. That's the point of it. So it's bold, it's scary. That's why Westminster Hall, the British Parliament didn't want to take it, but the EU Parliament will. The Federal Parliament of Berlin, believe it or not, is taking this, and lots of other great places. So I think it's things like that which dare to say, you think October 7 is about land? Think again. But the second part of my answer is, it's the think again point. Oh, Ernie, what do you think? Do you agree with this so far? It's not telling people they're silly or wrong. There's 5 stories of 5 pogroms and 5 inciters, 5 false prophets who preach the gospel of redemption by pogrom. We'll all be better when there are no more Jews left. When you see the words, as you will in this exhibition, that they all say, from the founder of the Islamic Brotherhood, to Sinwar, who ran Hamas, to Goebbels, who incited Kristallnacht, they all say the same thing. So we leave it to you, the audience, to absorb this stuff. Make your own minds up. What do you think? Is there a connection? Is it the same old thing yet again? And what happens in those societies to the non-Jewish survivors? Baghdad was one of the great cities of the world. Just a beautiful, glorious, creative, flourishing place. Look at it today. It ethnically cleansed its Jews. There are 4 Jews left in Iraq. I think none in Baghdad. And today it's not really what you'd call a cultural epicenter, is it?
No, not
we all
at all.
lose. My message is, and this message of this exhibition is when you murder and ethnically cleanse your Jewish co-citizens, you lose too.
Okay, I've got one final question before I've got 3 questions. So if you do want to put your questions to Mark, please do. So I've got 3 questions at the moment. But what role can Christians play in really standing with the Jewish community, particularly at this time of rising Jew hatred? And how can we bring comfort to the Jewish community, to the likes of you, Mark, our brothers and sisters, who we share this Judeo-Christian heritage, which is the foundation of Western civilization that has its origin in the Holy Scriptures of the Bible?
Well, I love that you asked, and thank you. I think just inviting me onto this is an example of the allyship and the friendship. You've done it before. I mentioned the March of Life people, the Smith family, our founders. I think just at an emotional level, knowing that we have your friendship and allyship is a massive boon. So I'm deeply grateful to you all and anyone who's listening for that. Jewish communities do need a morale boost, that is for sure. On a more functional level, I think it kind of slightly goes back to what I was saying before. I don't think, you know, pity isn't going to change anything. It might make, people feel a bit better for a second, but it won't change the hate out there. I think I would be incredibly grateful if Christians mobilized this sense of it's the middle ground, Middle England, as you said, that is under attack here. We are all under attack. Britain is under attack. Christianity under attack, or our values are under attack. That would be what I'd like to see. It's not just about feeling sorry for your Jewish mates.
Wonderful. Right, we've got quite a few questions now, and be wonderful to get them from our viewers tonight, who's been very patient. Sydney Sherbert writes, thank you for your most illustrating words. And Suzanne writes, a question from Canada. So wonderful to have a viewer from Canada tonight. Suzanne writes, a question from Canada. Does Mark have any plans to bring his exhibition to North America? And something related to that as well. Sydney also writes, what are the details, where, date, how long, etc. of your exhibition will be, please?
Okay, so it's called The Vicious Circle. It's only on for a week in London. It'll be in Soho in London. I think the details are on our website. The tickets are bookable now. I think it's holocaust.org.uk/what's on. Or if you go to the main page, go to the what's on page. You'll see it at the top of the website. There's a variety of other things mentioned, but the Vicious Circle is there and you can book there. It gives you the dates for the UK. Yes, we do have plans to come to North America. I think New York and Florida, we're being asked to bring it to, and Bermuda. I don't quite know why Bermuda. So yes, but I don't know when yet. The European tour at the moment is Brussels, Berlin, Tallinn, Copenhagen, and I think there'll be a couple of other places added. So I'm not sure. So we're going to finish the European run before we take it on to North America. But then I do hope to bring it back to the UK and have it here for longer than a week.
Wonderful. I've got two more questions. This is from our own Karen Beatty, who says, what do you say to Jewish people who joined the pro-Palestinian marches?
There are far fewer than the media or social media would have you believe. I think it's the Marxist. It sounds like I'm not answering the question, but I'll try and get to the point. But I want to start by saying that those Jews tend to be hard left. British Marxism today talks explicitly about the following phrase: what are we going to do about the Jewish question? Does that remind you of anybody? Because they weren't on the far left, they were on the far right. So that is how bad things become on the far left. So if you happen to be Jewish and hard left, Marxist, communist, whatever, then chances are, sadly, you are likely to hold anti-West, anti-capitalist views and therefore be guilty of the same falsehoods in your mind and your heart about Jews, even though you're Jewish.
And Jane writes a kind of more practical question, said, are there any videos that describe the ways of extermination and rounding up of Jews that was considered too slow and ineffective and became the basis of their determination to bring in mass murder and extermination? Have you seen and heard so much from Yad Vashem?
So what's the question? Are there any videos about the
yeah, so I think the more like the Nazi Großstaben with the assassinations of Jewish people before the gas chambers and the whole bringing in the horrible concentration camps like Auschwitz-Birkenau.
Well, I don't think it's answering the question, but the technique, okay. I can't remember the name of the Nazi, but the mobile killing squads, the Einsatzgruppen, was where the technique was first sort of happened across. They found a way of using the gas to in these mobile vans in quite efficient ways, and having that was to solve the problem of how do we kill lots of them as we go from town to town in Lithuania or Hungary, Latvia, or whatever. Once they so that was like the pilot. I feel sick saying this. It's like an industrial test pilot scenario. Then once they decided at the Wannsee conference on the final solution, having had that successful pilot trial, they thought, well, let's try and industrialize that. So are there videos about that? There's probably loads, but I'm not sure I would recommend them as a watch, really. Again, I come back to, could we think about possibly more about the why? Why did it get to that? And what? Because that why is back again. I'm slightly worried about morbid fascination. Sorry, with the awfulness of it. It's almost like watching a horror movie or reading a horror novel. It's almost like it's, and I'm sure that the person on the question in this instance, it isn't the case here, but for lots of people, every time there's a new Auschwitz book or movie or whatever, and it's dramatized and it's almost like escapist entertainment. I think it distances us from the problem today, because it's these crazy guys in jackboots and these awful things, and it was a long time ago, and it allows you off the hook of what are you going to do about things today, because the why is here today.
Absolutely. And talking about that, I mean, I had no pleasure in seeing the horrors of what Hamas committed on October the 7th, fighting the Israeli embassy. Saw the videos of Hamas's body cams, the CCTV cameras, and it's horrific. But when you actually go to southern Israel, the kibbutzes that were destroyed, the southern communities, you see the roads where the mass shootings took place. It just brings it home how horrific this is. Mark, it's been an absolute pleasure that you can join us tonight. And we want to thank you so much for giving up your time. And thank you for the amazing work you do with the UK National Holocaust Centre and Museum. And we thank you for your friendship. And, you know, as Christians, when we say never again, it means never again. We are so committed to standing up against Jew hatred, of advocating the truth about Israel, but also the goodness and the righteousness of the Jewish people, and what they bring to our nation is incredible. What you brought to advertising is amazing, but you're doing so much more now with the National Holocaust Centre in Nottingham. I'm just going to hand over to Len for kind of a quick reflection on tonight and to pray for tonight's proceedings. But it's been an absolute pleasure to host you.
Simon, thank you. Can I just say one quick thing with regard to the exhibition, because given how much you've talked about Israel, unsurprisingly, given the show, the exhibition, The Vicious Circle, includes real, authentic artifacts, objects, one of which is from one of the kibbutzim that was wiped out. So the oldest hostage taken by Hamas on that dreadful day was a man called Shlomo Manzur. He was 85. He was a wonderful guy, everyone's favorite grandpa in kibbutz Kisufim on the Gaza border. He's a carpenter, and he used to love making toys for all the children in the kibbutz. He was beaten up, he was snatched, his wife was too. They freed his wife. We still don't know whether he's alive or dead. He's now 86. We have the very last thing that he made for kids in his workshop. It's the most beautiful pair of butterfly glasses, stunningly exquisite. And his daughter had to persuade her a bit, because it's a beautiful reminder of him. We've got that as a symbol of the beauty of kibbutz life that has been ruptured, and where the Palestinians lose as well, because they'll no longer have the benefit of Shlomo's gifts and toys for all the kids. So I just wanted to say that, because it's incredibly powerful. And by the way, he was also in the Baghdad pogrom of 1941. Talk about the vicious circle. He's the victim of 2 pogroms, not 1. So come and see the exhibition if you can.
Yeah, thank you, Mark. Over to you, Len.
Yes, thank you so much, Mark. That was stimulating, informative, challenging. I could think of many other adjectives too to describe the evening. So thank you so much. You've really given, in some ways, compared to other speakers, you've given a different view on stuff, and that was so very special for us. And your honesty and truthfulness too. So thank you, and I hope we have the privilege of having you do some other things with us in the future. So
it'll be a privilege for me too. Thank you.
Yeah, But for those of you who have been watching, if you want to know more about the work of the Holocaust Museum, Joanne has kindly put in the website in the chat, so you can go into the chat section there and copy down the website and see what's happening, and go along to these events as and when you can to support the work. And I think it's going to be in my bucket list for this year to visit the museum. So thank you ever so much. And just to assure you, as you said before, there's so much that we share of common ground, and the attack is not just against the Jewish people; it's against those who believe in the God of Israel. I can sum it up as that. That includes yourselves and ourselves. And so we know that the pressure is on so many levels, but it's more upfront with the Jewish people. And so it's time for us, as I say every time I get the opportunity, we need to get out there, put our boots on, as well as put our hands in our pockets. So let's stand alongside whenever the opportunity comes. Jump at it to stand alongside the Jewish people. So I'm just going to pray and then hand back to Simon to wrap things up. So Heavenly Father, thank you for the challenge tonight and the things that we've heard. And Lord, as we do remember the past, we want it to affect us here and now, not just be educated and informed, but challenged and changed and activated and moved and Lord, to do something, Lord, because it's still happening. It's still going on around us. We see it. It's every Saturday in London and various other places here in Oxford too. So help us to know just how we can be an effective, true friend to the Jewish people during these dark days. So we just thank you for our time this evening. We ask your blessing on Mark and the work that he is doing, and for that whole work at the museum, Holocaust Museum. Lord, may they know the blessing of God through this season, Lord. So we just commit ourselves to you and thank you for our evening. Amen.
Amen.
Okay, Simon.
Thank you so much, Len. So we want to thank all of you for joining us tonight, giving up your time to hear from our special guest this month, Mark Cave, which has really been educational. So I think what we can take away from tonight's extraordinary evening is to learn why the Holocaust happened and apply it to October the 7th and apply it to this current time that we're living in. But we have an opportunity to, as Christians, to ensure that we don't make the mistakes that Christians made in the 1930s and 40s by remaining silent. We need to make our voices known, and we need to confront this evil that is Jew hatred. So thank you so much for joining us tonight for the first edition of Jerusalem Dispatch Live ICEJ UK. And I just want to say shalom and God bless. Thank you so much, Mark. Thank you so much, Len and Joanne, and for all of you being part of this special evening. And let's visit the museum in Nottingham, and also let's visit this exhibition, and let's also confront Jew hatred when we see it face to face. If someone is talking down on Jewish people, speak up and say that's not acceptable. We can all play our part in confronting this evil and making our society a better place. So thank you for watching tonight's Jerusalem Dispatch. Goodbye. Shalom.
Catch the wind, he's carrying